right, welcome. If you're ready, come up into a standing position. We'll start our warm-up. Hello. Let's start to twist and turn just a little bit. We're going to do some things to get the back mobilized. We're going to do some things to get our balance centers engaged. So remember to do the amount that seems to be appropriate for your body. So more or less than I is always okay. Then we're going to take the arms, we're going to raise them up and bring them down. This is a start of what we're going to do with the shoulder, but we'll have some specific shoulder warm-ups as well. And then we're going to let those knees bend ever so slightly, rocking the weight backward toward the heels. We're going to lose our balance. And then forward and toward the toes, we're going to lose our balance. And so the knees being locked tight would make us move our body. The knees being soft means that we can actually, as we lose our balance, go into a bit of a crouch. And of course, your body will do all sorts of radical things with that. Have one foot forward or the other, keep the knees in the bend, go toward the toes, and then back toward the heels. So we're trying to teach ourselves this very important skill of crouching when we're losing our balance. Other foot goes forward into a crouch, and then backward. And of course, stepping forward or back is not negative. That's just us recovering. Good. Now that was surface area. But surface area that's smaller by bringing the feet actually together when we go toward the toes, if there's even slight movement to the left or the right, it's going to be magnified because we don't have room to give. We're just precariously balanced like a little bowling pin here, but even more, it's the head of a pin when we're just on one foot. So we try and go forward. And of course, the body's going to eventually try and lock that knee, and that would send the weight of our head someplace instead of straight down. It would cause us to lose our balance more. So it's hard to balance on one foot anyway, and then rocking back and forth, well, that's definitely waking up our balance center. Good. Now go back to standing with the feet about hip distance, and we're going to touch the floor. Now there's two methods. The method of going into a bend of the knee and touching the floor. This is troublesome if your knees are problematic, so you could bend forward, but make sure your low back stays toward the navel, that you don't round your back, and bend your knees the amount you need at the end there so you can touch the floor. So either of those two methods works. And we're going to try it with 1 foot forward. So it's either the crouch down method or mostly forward bend and a little bit of knee bend method. And we'll put the other foot in the forward position. And you can do them both. It'd be a good idea if your knees don't complain to do them both, or if your back doesn't complain to do them both. Great. Of course, if we have a smaller surface area, when we crouch down and bend the knees, those knees actually have to separate apart from one another. And that slight deviation, one knee going out more than the other, you might feel that. If instead I do more of a forward bending action, well, still any left or right movement, and I'm going to feel my body swaying, the weight of it swaying out that way. And a single foot position, interestingly enough, the easier way is to have the leg almost completely straight as you come down. The other leg moving backward will act as a very nice counterbalance. You'll get used to that very easily. That's a great way to pick up something off the ground without straining your back. But a challenge for the legs, a good leg builder, would be to bend the knee. Just be careful that your knee does not dislike to be bent with your full body weight on it. So there we go. Good. Okay, now let's come back to that hip distance wide, and we're going to lean to one side. And when we do, we're going to send the other leg off. Body, it's going to make a little star shape. It just does what it needs to in order to keep us balanced, and that's rather nice. Now here's another thing to wake up our balance center. Put one foot directly in front of the other so that your toes are touching the heel, and then see if you balance like that. You can have your arms outward, just looking straight ahead. And if the looking straight ahead works for you, then close your eyes and just notice how much your balance degrades without the visual field adding in. It's a good way to track whether there's something going on in your balance center or vestibular ear system. So 1 foot on the other side now forward. Oh, I have trouble with this side. That foot in the back position. So even with my arms out, if I had a significant trouble and couldn't stabilize, I'd just stay like this. And I'm going to go for that additional challenge of closing the eyes and see what happens. Okay, today's a good day. Very good. All right. Now, as we're doing that, we're warming up the whole body, but roll your shoulders. Let's get the shoulders active because we're going to be using a muscle that is deeper, more obscure. It's under the shoulder. And one way for me to use it is to take my arm forward and just reach so that the arm, this is how long my arm is, but my shoulder blade can add actually several inches if it moves away from the spine. That movement, that stretching of the arm outward is the muscle under the shoulder blade called serratus anterior. So we reach. But it does tend to matter if I'm reaching in a higher angle or reaching in a lower angle than the one that was level. Let's try this side. We've got the level reach, we've got the higher angle, and we've got the lower angle. And although it works out to the side, in today's class, we're going to be having the arm in a more forward position. Higher up, or that other arm higher up. And yes, you can raise both at the same time. It is different though when both are working. If you want more of a specific, if you've got arms that are a little different because one is still recovering from an issue or an injury, then I would suggest doing the single arm at a time method. If both arms are practically the same or you're pressed for time, you can do both at the same time. Okay, and you can mix and match it as well. So different methods, a good start for this muscle, serratus anterior, widening apart the shoulder blade, a place where we tend to collect a lot of tension because of our habit of squeezing shoulder blades together when we don't have enough pectoral or chest strength. So serratus is a good friend of the pectoral group. It helps assist when we're creating action in the pecs, as well as when we're creating rotation in the arms. Really good muscle. Okay, now we are going to be creating action with our glutes, and if you do not want to come down to the floor, you can remain in a chair and pressing your heel into the floor as you sit. You tighten one seat muscle, you tighten the other seat muscle, then you press both down as if you're to lift yourself from the chair, and you tighten them both. But if you can be on the floor, then it's a simple bridging action. Now, to tell the body that I want to get the action in my glutes, I'm going to need to bring my heels very close to the seat muscle region, probably about as close as they can get. Although I've had some people take their feet a little too close. I don't want my back completely flattened. I'd like it to be slightly curved, a little bit of a space under that low back between rib and pelvis. And I'm going to start off pushing one heel down more firmly, tightening the seat muscle, pushing the other heel down more firmly, tightening the seat muscle. I'll start and I'll make sure that I don't have to flatten my back in order to get seat muscle action. And when I'm ready, here's my first count. I push the heels, seat muscles both tighten, knees reach toward toes, and I lift up. At the top, I press more firmly to get more seat muscle action, and then I come down and land on the seat muscles. Okay, not on the low back. So that would count one. We're going to do about 10 of these. Now, that you might think, that's not enough activation for me. So you could start by pressing, activating, lifting, reaching, and then shift the weight to one side, lifting that side higher, coming to neutral, pressing, lifting the other side higher, coming to neutral, and then coming down. You can also create this action where you are going to use one leg, pushing down on the heel, tighten the seat muscle, knee reaching towards toe as you come up. That's obviously going to be more action. And then coming back down and switching, pushing down the heel. You're not going to be using this leg because you're going to come up. So that would be a greater intensity, obviously, with that. So different methods from a seated in a chair kind of position to a recline on the back activation. And it's important for us to find the level that we feel is engaging us appropriately, not too much, but also not too little. So find yourself in those options and see if you can, in a 10 repetition activity, find a bit of activation. Now, if you're doing those methods, you're saying, I'm still not feeling it, and go slower and hold the action for just a little bit longer. And I think you'll know that you've got some seat muscles after that. Very good. Okay. Now we're going to switch back to an arm action. We're going to be doing what's called an upright row. And the upright row is working with the front piece of our shoulder, known as the anterior deltoid. So there's 3 deltoids. We've got the front piece, the middle piece, and the back piece. So we've got anterior, middle, and posterior deltoid muscles. The upright row is a very nice action for restoring strength in order to this anterior deltoid. And it's typically done often with 2 weights, but I'm going to show you a 1-weight method first. I'm going to have the arms lined up so my palms are facing my body as I'm holding a weight. And I'm going to start to lift the weight up, keeping it lined up with my shoulder. And as the wrist goes up, so does my elbow. My wrist will never climb higher than my elbow, but it might come to level. Everyone's a little different. Some people, the elbow more easily rises upward. For some people, the elbow remains more level. But if your elbow stops lifting, your wrist should not go higher than the elbow, okay? So for some, the amount of lift is going to be small because there's a developmental requirement to get it higher. Now you can do one arm and then switch to the other arm, and they may feel different and they may behave different even though you're using the same weight. If you're wanting a little more action, you more inwardly rotate the arm. And yes, you can lift both arms at the same time. I get a little bit to offset there, and it takes a lot of concentration to get the arms. I'm looking in the video to see if my arms are basically level. You can look in a mirror if you want as well. So keep working with that. Let's see if I can control these dogs. Lucy, Pogo, come here. Yell aloud. Yell aloud. Stay. Stay. Nope. Wait. No. Stay right here. Enough of that. Enough of that barking. Go take a nap or something quiet. Play the quiet game. Okay, so there we get the action into the anterior deltoid. Now, we're going to work with our calf muscles. And for this, it would be best if we could be very balanced, because I'm going to ask us to use something that makes a little bit unwieldy position. It's a foam block. You might have a more solid block, a wooden block. But I like the foam blocks because they do create imbalance. Now, you may not have a block at all, so you could just use the floor. Our first round, we're going to be keeping the knee straight so that we engage the portion of the calf muscle that's basically starting above the knee and attaching to the common tendon right down here. And it's called the gastrocnemius. I can touch something to remain more balanced, or if I don't need it, I don't have to. And then I just come onto the ball of the foot and lift my heels as high as I can, balance for a moment, and then slowly return down. So that's the floor method without any use of block. But the block method provides me with an additional activity known as a stretch. So I'm going to place the front part of my foot, leaving my heel off the block so I can sink my heels down. What a lovely stretch. Now I'm starting the muscle longer, so it's going to be a more powerful contraction. I come forward onto the ball of the foot. I lift my heels up. Yeah, I'm happy that I have this to touch and I can hang on. Just touching is enough to keep me balanced, and then coming slowly back down until the heels hang. And so the stretch is an important aspect of it because these muscles of our calf can often be tight. We tend to point our toes often when we sleep, or if we're seated, we might have the toe in a point position, and a pointed toe, the one we're coming to right here, is a short calf muscle. So we tend to do that unconsciously, not because we're active, but because we're being passive about things. And posture affects the length of muscle. So even though I'm not doing anything with the muscle, if I hold it in a position where it's short, it's going to become short. It's going to resist my attempts to make it longer. So I'm stretching and then contracting. Great way to lengthen and strengthen that same muscle. Well, that felt good. That's our gas drop. And very good. Clear your space when you're ready for the next thing, because the next thing is going to be core-based. Our abdominal muscles right here are the rectus abdominis. And the side abdominal muscles are the obliques. We're going to do a nice combination of those. First by using a bird dog, but if you don't want to come to the floor, you can create some core engagement at a wall, raising the opposite arm and leg in an upward movement. This kind of crawling action will have your body balancing using a flexor as well as something keeping you from shifting over the obliques. But if you can come to a tabletop position, we're going to do a bird dog. Now here's the things. I want the shoulders to be level, the pelvis to be level, and I want a long spine. So the chest pulls forward and the hips pull back. Resting the top of my foot down, I'm going to reach my left hand toward the left front of the mat and my right foot toward the right back edge of the mat. And then I'm going to lift the arm and leg up while keeping my shoulders and my pelvis level and my spine long. We may find that we're a little out of balance with that. And that's fine. And we'll get better as we go. Now the right hand toward the right front, the left foot toward the left back. And then I'm raising, holding level, and then coming down. I'm in no hurry to get into or out of this pose. Now there's an additional thing. Here's the top of my foot resting, and that's actually providing a lot of balance. So hand toward front, foot toward back, and I raise them. Now, if I also lift this other foot upward off the floor and just balance on my knee, well, that's like going on a pony ride there, fucking bronco. I'll do the other side, hand toward the front, foot toward the back. I raise them, and then I just sort of lift that foot upward. Oh my goodness. And fight to stay on the horse there. So this is going to, you could just do it this way, or you could occasionally do that. Like I say, be precise, make it a process of getting into it, decide to amount, make it a process of getting out of it, because your body's going to try and throw you out of it. Don't let the body make those kind of decisions, because it'll say, that's a quick way to get out of this. It's sort of like when I was as a child riding a horse, and the horse had learned that if it were to fall on the ground and roll over, that the rider on it would have to get off and it could go back to the barn. So yeah, that's what it did with me. So don't let your pose do that with you. Stay on it. Make yourself do a process to get into and out of that pose, and then you're going to have more engagement of your core. Okay, that's good. Now, when you finish with that, we're finished with the first round, and traditionally we have a little bit of a goat bell that lets us know, yeah, okay, we're done with that, and we're ready for round two. Now, this is a chance to do what's called progressive resistance training, which means that each round you might be able to do things that were a little more intense than the previous round, but that may or may not be appropriate for you. So you make those choices. You can always do the things we did in the first round. I'll remind you of those. And in the serratus first round, the shoulder blade muscle, we started with maybe our hands at the wall, pulling backward. We also did this pull of a strap, stretching forward. And we did on our back with weights, the arms reaching outward. All of those, very good. But now I'm going to offer that with maybe a difference. You could be at the wall instead of having the hands right here, we could take the hands and place them so that they are higher and pulling backwards. Same with the strap, stretching upwards. Same with the on the back, the arms angled slightly higher. But there's also a way to start using body weight. And I'm going to use the body weight. Here's my recommendation for round 2, is that I come into a tabletop. Now, it's like when we were in the tabletop for the bird dog. They have the hands under the shoulders, a long spine, and level shoulders, level pelvis. But I'm going to push the wall and move my spine upward, and I'm pushing, like I'm trying to push the floor away from me. It becomes rather intense, and then I relax. I can even squeeze the shoulder blades a little together. And then I push the floor, and I lift. Now, the rest of my body, from the rib cage to the pelvis, is staying still. It's the space between the shoulder blades that's widening. And then when I'm done with it, I'm narrowing it. Now, this might get to the wrists, and if it does, you can take a break and just take your body backward. That'll take the weight off the wrist. You also don't have to have your hands down in a position like this. You could have your fists down on the floor like so, and that will take the pressure off that wrist area. You could even, instead of having your hands on the floor, use a block to allow the fingers to be down a little bit more, and that sometimes is easier on the wrist. And then there are these bars that you can use to comfort the wrist that you would hold, much like your fist being down. So the more you push downward into the floor, and the more you lift your spine upward, the greater the engagement. Now, if you wanted to try it with your hands a little more forward and then pulling back, that would be a slightly different angle. So you can mix in a little bit of that angle too, the hands being forward instead of right underneath the shoulders. This will create an interesting fatiguing effect. You will feel some of the fatigue because the muscle is stretching, the rhomboid muscle is stretching. It's not actually contracting, but you might feel almost everything between the shoulder blades because this is a very effective stretch of muscle that can be overly short and tight. Okay. Now, when we're finished with that serratus work, whichever we chose to do, 10 repetitions of it, we want to create action in the glute again. And this time, I'm going to offer us creating an action where we're on our side. Now, remember, we did a seated version where we could just push down the heels and then press and act like we're going to lift up. We get some good, strong action. Or when we were on our back doing the bridging position, we could do it. So if you don't want to come onto your side, those would be 2 options for you. But if I'm on my side, I'm going to get my neck and my shoulder comfortable, which for me means I prop my head. But for a lot of other people, they put a pillow or bolster under the head, or maybe even a block. Now I'm going to bring my legs forward at 90 degrees with the knee over the knee, which means my pelvis is stacked one side over the other. I'm doing this to help hold me in place. I need for my lowest leg, the one that's against the ground, to stay there. But I'm going to angle the upper leg in about a 45-degree angle, and I need to loosen it up a little bit. So I'm going to bring the leg forward and holding my ankle. I'm just going to pull back slightly. Now that was with my legs staying pretty low, but I'm going to have my knee come a little bit more upward. And I can feel the stretch in my thigh, my knee at that angle, that 45-degree angle coming backward. Now, the action that I want us to do means that I'm going to let the leg go. I'm going to tilt, and I'm going to push with my heel, pushing my heel backward. I can straighten the leg, whatever amount I want, and then I come down. If I wanted to create a stretch, I'd bring the leg more toward my chest. So the hip sweep that goes back and up, and then forward and down. Now we're going to get a lot of companionship, the side of the hip region, glute medius and glute minimus, a little bit of the muscle right here in the front of the hip, the tensor fasciae lata. But we're going to get our glute max too. We're after 10 of these, and if you're like most, if you're going slowly enough, maybe holding with the leg in that backward upward lift, you're beginning to feel some fatigue, some lactic acid buildup. And you can do more than 10 if you're saying, oh, this is easy for me. I'm not feeling anything. Congratulations if that's you. And then we let that side rest when we've done 10 repetitions or so. And then we're going to do the other side. Okay. Now, of course, our sides are not absolutely equal to each other, so we might get a little bit different results when we switch over. So you keep going if you're not ready to switch. Because this side is the same. I come onto the side, and my knees are bent 90 degrees forward. I've got knee over knee, so I know that my pelvis is stacked one side completely over the other. And I want to first stretch this thigh a little bit so it doesn't resist me as much. Head and neck are comfortable. I'm going to grab hold somewhere between the knee and the ankle and the shin line. I'm going to go a little forward and then I'm going to pull back. Now, my plan is for my knee to come up higher, in fact, higher than the hip. So I'm going to pull backward with the knee, sort of duplicating that 45-degree angle. And that's a good pre-working stretch, opening up the leg. We don't have to do it very many times, holding it. Now I'm ready, so I angle the foot upward. I'm going to reach through my heel and then push that leg, a little bit of straightening, and then I'm going to come forward. Now I could just come and rest it on the leg and start each thing anew, or if I wanted, I could continue to sweep forward. I'm going backward, but not so much that it pulls this lower leg away from the floor. And you may feel the fatigue far more on one side versus the other. And so if you're doing this, you're probably going to be thinking, when's 10 coming? Because that's pretty strong. It can get very strong, that lactic acid burn, but it'll clear out even before we get to our next round. Okay, so here we are. When we've done that, now we're ready to work with the deltoid. And you're welcome to all 3 rounds work the anterior, that's the upright row action, but I want you to have the chance also to work the medial deltoid with what's known as a lateral lift. Now, there's a lot of misunderstanding about the idea of lift. So if I were to take my arm, and if you do it right now, if you just take your arm out to the side, a portion of the lift, the first 60 degrees is the deltoid. So that's about there. Anything above that and lifting higher is actually a group of muscles that go up in the neck and that can make our neck tense. I don't want to use as heavy of a weight as I was using for the upright row, so I'm deliberately choosing a lighter weight because this muscle is not as likely to be strong. So these lighter weights I'll choose, and I'll do the one-arm method in the beginning. So this one has a preliminary action. As I hold the weights, first thing I do is make the shoulders lower. I reach them down. This is actually the activation of the lat muscle, shoulders toward the hip, and keep that happening. And then I take the arm outward. I don't think upward. I'm just saying I'm taking my arm off to its side. And about there, with my shoulder blade lower, I am not lifting up any higher. It's just not possible for the shoulder to do it. Reaching down and out. Now, I'm not saying that you couldn't let go and the arm could come all the way up, but that's not the deltoid. That's something else. So shoulder blade down, raising out, and it's going to be below the level of the shoulder. And I'm doing it about the speed I want you to do it. So there's this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to make us tired. Shoulders down. So right there, when I'm reaching the point where my body would say, hey, let's give up on that muscle, that's when I stop the lift. Now, you can do both at the same time. Shoulder blades down, you got to really focus on that because the body's got to be looking for anybody else to help out. And here again, I can see a slight reluctance of one arm to keep up with the other, and that's just because my dominant side, this is something that it sometimes does. And my non-dominant side is saying, I can't remember a time when you made me reach outward to the side. That's not true. It doesn't want to remember the times that I've made it reach out to the side. So yes, we can do both arms at the same time. Just try and stay equal with them so that we wait to spine. Or you can do, especially if one arm seems to be very different than the other, or you just want to slow it way down and just focus on that one side at a time. Whatever seems to be the sitting thing. And remember, if you instead were saying, no, I still want to work on the front one, that's fine too. Okay. That is our lateral deltoid raise, and we're going to come back to some calf muscle work. So I'm setting things up as you get finished with your delts, setting things up so that I'm going to be stable enough. But I don't have to have a chair, and I don't have to have a block if I don't want to. I can do this this calf work in order to engage more of the deep layer. So about where the big muscle starts to form its own tendon and attach here, we've got this little muscle that's deep called the soleus. It also helps form that Achilles tendon. And it works the most when our knees are bent. So by bending the knee, there I go, I am going to lift my heels up and in no way straighten my knee. There I am, I'm using my soleus and then I'm coming down. You can see that I'm not straightening my knee because my body height doesn't change. It stays right here. If I were straightening my knee, I'd get taller. So don't get taller during this one. If you want to use the blocks, the best thing I found is to start off on the block. Before I even stretch the heels down, I bend my knee. Then I see, can I put my heels down? It's really hard to do that. And keeping my knees bent, I lift up, and it makes me feel a loss of balance. So my knees are bent in the beginning. I try and reach my heels down to whatever degree I can. And then coming forward on the ball of the foot, lifting my heels up and discovering that I'm not as balanced doing things this way. And my quads, I'm feeling a lot of work right there. Perhaps more so than I feel in my target muscle down in this region. And that's because this is a partner, and that partner needs to learn its job. And I have a lot of opportunities in real life to keep my knees in a bend and lift my heels upward. This is not an area that's known for its steep inclines of hiking and things like that. So if you get to the point where your quads are just like, they don't want to do anymore, walk around a few paces. That will help things. And then you can go back to it, bending the knees, trying to sink those heels down, and then coming forward on the toes. I eventually condition, but just because I'm supposed to feel it in the target muscle doesn't mean I will. It's another muscle whose part of the game is getting a little more work. All right. So we're going to clear our mat. And indeed, if you did not want to do that knee, if that turned out to be something that you found didn't work for you, then a straight leg calf raise would be another one you could do. Nice. Okay. Now we're going to do a version of bird dog. Again, we had a wall version of the bird dog where we just raised the opposite arm and leg upward. And then we did the tabletop version where we reached an arm and the opposite leg backward. But now we're going to do a reclined version called the bug. So you could do these other two if you preferred. And the bug I like a lot because it really is about control. It's about emphasizing absolute control. So I'm going to start with my feet off the floor, my knees right above my hips, okay? And my arms stretched, hands right above the shoulders. Now only my right hand and my left leg are going to move, and they're going to move away from each other, and they're going to hover. They're not actually going to come and touch the floor. And then I'm going to bring them back up again. And then my left hand and my right leg are going to move. And while they do, the other arm and leg don't change. That's my goal. I hover and I come back up again. Now this bug starts off and you think, how am I going to make that harder? And just get it, about the third one, you'll think, when is this going to end? How big is 10? Because the body at first is, it's reluctant. It doesn't quite know. It's the partnering. You can be strong in the side of your waist, the obliques. You can be strong in the front of the waist, the rectus abdominis. But being strong in them as they partner each other gets to fiber areas that we normally don't work. Now, I'm doing all of this with my back in slight arch away from the floor. And that can continue. But if I wanted to make it harder, I could flatten my back, pulling in my belly. And then starting off, it's a little hard to keep my back flat. So when I take the arm away, well, that makes it even harder. I'm trying to flatten my back. Oh my goodness. So that's if you're ready for more challenge. Makes my voice go away. All right. Now, could you do this with a foot staying down? Sure. That would give you more support. All right. So, you know, anything is fair. If you're really needing to have something that's just sort of a bridge to get used to this action. The bird dog might be easier, I think, in a certain way than the bug. That's why this is in round 2 versus bird dog. So you might stick with that a little longer if you found that you could do the bird dog better and the bug was a little more troublesome. But that's okay, because it's all right for our body to have a challenge. We want to work right up to that level. We don't want to feel that our back is over-engaging or becoming uncomfortable, or any other body part either. But it's okay to be tired, and it's okay for it to be awkward. In fact, the expectation is that it's going to be awkward and it's going to make us tired. That's our goal. Now, this is great. When we finish the amount of bug we want, you're going to hear the bell, the sheep bell that says, I'm through with round 2. We're beginning our round 3, but you finish up as you do. Now, the serratus is our muscle, and what we did in the first round, I'm going to show you, we did this with the hands right here when you move the chest backward, and then in round 2, we could either have done that or we could have our arms up higher and move the chest backward. Same with the strap, but also I can have one hand high and the other hand now in a lower position, and I pull my chest backward. So these are different fiber lines, and then I'm going to switch which arm is high, which arm is low, and pull my chest backward. What that would look like with the strap, you really got to get the strap pretty low on the back if you're going to use it, okay? So this would be the strap with me level. This is the strap with me higher. You could do the strap a little lower, but it's better to have one high, one low. So that works rather effectively, okay? We could technically be on our back with these weights. And I said that we started off, we could just, raise those arms, upward shoulders lifting. You could also do it with a slightly above the headline angle, but then this would also work with the raising one high, and of course high is relative, one in the direction of the head, one in the direction of the hip, that raising upward away from the floor. Okay, now in round 2, so we got a little medley here. In round 2, we were using a tabletop version where we could have the arms right underneath. This was just extra body weight. You push the floor very firmly and you pull the chest backward. And I also said that that was quite possible with the hands here and pulling backward. But indeed, I could have one hand here and the other hand more right here. So this is a little bit, not under the shoulder, but slightly behind that shoulder line. And I can press both hands and pull the chest backward. Pressing both hands and pull the chest backward. On the wall, I was able to turn my hand. I can right now turn my hand in this direction as I create that pull the chest backward. It really should be that your wrist is not bothered by the angle of the arms that you're using. So that would be the tabletop version, but this is round 3, which means, hey, the ramp goes up higher. Don't do this if you're satisfied with the others. I can make a plank. Now I can make a kneeling plank. Here I am, tabletop. What turns it into a kneeling plank is when my hands are more forward and more body weight is resting. This pelvis is at an angle. And I can do the simple press and move. It's a little harder to take the hands more forward like this, but I can do it. And I can have one hand forward and the other hand more backward. It's actually a little difficult to get my fingers turned with more weight. There's that. And there's that one. But then I can also, if my wrists will be comfortable, go into a full plank position. And then just rise upward. So that action there. Now, in the full plank, I would not put the hands forward and I wouldn't use the hand forward, hand backward method simply because there's so much pressure on the wrist. I'm worried that that would create trouble. So bring the knees down if you want to have a challenge that is going to have the hands in those alternate positions for the serratus muscle. So yeah, we use it, when we use it, it's usually right here. We almost never use it right here. We almost never use it right here. And we certainly, this weird thing right here, we almost never do that. And so all of these are very good actions for us to create for that under the shoulder blade support of the structure of the shoulder. So from the wall to the tabletop to the plank, there you go. Now we're going to get that glute active. And so far, we've created activity in a bridge position, and we even created the chair bridge by pressing the heels, not actually lifting, but pressing as if we were going to lift. Those are still very valid. We did it all on the side, the hip sweeping action, and that's still very valid. But we're going to create what's called a kicking back action. This is done in a tabletop or forearm tabletop position. So I'll show you the tabletop. You want to have a lot of padding under the knees, and you want to have a space where your leg can come against. So to give myself extra padding under the knees, I'm going to use a bolster just so that I have a nice soft space for my knees. Now I've got to make sure that I position this so that in my tabletop, actually I'm too close to it. Oh, there we go. I'm positioning this so that in my tabletop, when I reach my leg straight back, it touches that wall. So there I am, knees nice and happy on something. You don't have to be on a bolster, but it feels good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift to the side. I'm going to lift this knee up, trying to keep my pelvis nice and level. I'm going to straighten the leg, and I'm going to touch that wall or whatever it is, and I'm going to push nice and firm. What a nice contraction in that straight leg back there. And then I'm going to shift, bring the leg up, keep the pelvis level, straighten the leg, find that wall, and I'm going to push. And then release. Now, I don't have to have my hands down. This works just as well with the forearms lowered down. Okay? So I'm shifting, I'm bringing the leg up, pelvis level, I reach the leg back, and I've got to move a little bit there. The forearm position. There it is. Okay. There, and there's the wall. Push. Great. And then it's shift, bring the leg up, pelvis stay level, straighten that leg, find that wall, and push into it. That gets everything in the back of the leg, not just the glutes. Gets a good friend, the hamstring. You can get those calf muscles too. And so this is a good one, but remember, it's only one of 3 choices that you could be making right now, or even more than that, so that you can get the work that you need. And you know, it's not that unusual. Just because this is technically more difficult, you might find this action to be easier, or maybe it's not engaging you like that other thing that you did. And really focus on those things. If you found something that really brings on strong contraction, focal weight, right, and our target group, then work that one, because that one's the one that's going to get the best mind and body connection for you. And that's going to build the strongest recruitment of the muscle fibers in the areas that you want. So these others, you can just try them out, but focus on the things that seem to give you the most reaction, most activation. Very good. Okay, now we're going to be working with the posterior deltoid. You could still do the upright row. You still could do the lateral lift, but this one, this posterior delt, I don't need a very heavy weight at all. This always checks out to be a pretty weak muscle in most people. I'm going to use a chair. I'm going to sit way forward of this chair because it's got arms, so I'm just barely on the chair. And I'm going to use, I've just got one pound weight. You can use a 1 pound, 2 pound, 3 pound, something like that. It really doesn't need a lot of work because the tendency is for us to do too much. In fact, I'm going to do the first part of this, showing you the activation of it, where I am, I'm not using any weight at all. So I fold forward. Now the knees can be more separated or whatever, but we've got to get the body forward so that the chest is basically parallel to the floor. My arms are going to hang down. I'm going to do 2 things before I even begin to create the action. I'm going to pull my shoulder blades toward my hips. I'm going to make the space between the shoulder blades wide. There's serratus, there's our lats. And then I'm going to take an arm and bring it out to the side. Remember, I'm not thinking lift, I'm thinking reach out. Boy, did I feel that. So shoulder blades toward hips, and here's serratus. Lift the space between the shoulder blades, and here goes my other arm out to the side. So again, my goal is not to take my arm and go, yeah, oh, I can lift it all the way up. That is not a sign of a better deltoid. That's a sign of your body going, we won't even use that posterior deltoid. We're going to bring in anybody else. All right, so I'm going to use a 1 pounder here, just on one side. So shoulder blades toward hips, wide shoulder blade, the arm goes out to the side. And you could do that one arm kind of method. I have a couple of 3 pounders. We'll see if that's working. I'll show you the 2-arm method. So again, shoulder blades toward hips, wide between shoulder blades. And then I just think the arms are just moving outward, away from my body. I don't think of them moving upward. I just think of them moving outward. And they do not get parallel to the floor. I don't let my shoulder blades squeeze together. Really important, because if the shoulder blades are squeezing together, the wrong muscles employed. It's getting even tighter. And so all of these things work together. This posterior deltoid and your serratus are good buddies. Got to keep that wide shoulder blade, and then you can take that arm out to the side. And that will be great. Okay. Building up that is the posterior deltoid is one of the external rotator muscles, not considered part of the rotator cuff, but its health is very important for the health of the other rotator cuff muscles. Okay. Now, I just need this because we're going to do a single leg calf action. Now, you might do better without using a block right now. So to do a single leg, one of the things that I want is to understand that although I could just have, myself suspended on the one leg, I can also use this other leg, sort of a kickstand. So it's there to help me balance, and then I just come forward and up. And it's in this leg right here, this one closest to you. It's not doing any work. It's just there in case I start to lose my balance. So that actually works pretty well. And I could do the other side, just using my kickstand there. Doesn't have to touch the floor all the time. It's just there. My body knows it's there. Body likes to use both calf muscles at the same time. So that was the straight leg version. The bent knee version, I bend, and here's my kickstand, and then it's like, okay, keep trying to straighten my leg there. Not doing it right. There we go. It's really hard for me with one leg, with all that body weight, to make my body behave. Here's the bend to knee, and then the lift of the heel. It's like my body's like, I'm like this. Don't want to have all that weight. I want my friend. I want my good buddy, the other calf. Here it would be if I'm using the blocks. So I can still do a kickstand. This leg could be touching, but I can also just sort of link it up behind the leg there and just do the lift. Sink it down into the stretch. My balance there. And lift it up. Okay, so to one side. And remember, I can still touch if I wanted to. Or I just get the leg completely out of it, sink it down, lift it up. That's a straight leg version. The bent knee version. On one leg, I bend the knees first, and then I shift, and then I try and, my body. There's always going to be that thing that your body's like, I don't like that. And we don't like it because we're weak. Make sure that it's not because it's hurting you, That would be a good reason for us not to like something. It's like it's painful. Well, then do something else. We'll do the painful thing. But if it's just fatiguing, you're getting tired and hot and sweaty, good. That's why we're here. All right, so you're on your own timeline. If you're doing both things of the straight leg lift, the bent knee lift, it's going to take you a little bit of time to do those 10 of each. You can do this as a focused idea of seeing how your balance changes. It's always an interesting thing to do. Just make sure that you can rescue yourself if you do begin to lose your balance. So this will help you increase your balance and will help you with any kind of lower leg difficulties. Now, we're going to be doing more of the rectus abdominis and the oblique work. Now, we could always just continue that wall work of the arm and the leg coming upward, but we can also, in this action, we can crunch the knee and the arm together. All right, so we can create that crunch kind of an action, or just the lift kind of an action. we can create a crunch kind of an action or the lift kind of an action, right? So that's allowable. That's going to get some more activation in both parts of the core. The bird dog is a beautiful recipe for creating a crunch type action. So this is what it looks like if we do the bird dog with a crunch going in. I start off in the tabletop. I let the hand and the leg go outward. I lift up, and then I'm going to crunch leg and elbow towards each other. I'm going to come into the bird dog again, and then I'm going to return precisely to that tabletop. And here I go into the bird dog first, and then the crunch, and then bird dog, and then back and out of that. Okay, so that is going to add a little bit of a mix into that. Now, if you're saying, yeah, but it's not really challenging, I need some more challenge, okay. So I start off, I'm in that bird dog, but then I lift this back foot, and then I try and do it with that back foot lift, and bring the hand and the knee, and oh, the elbow, oh, that's difficult. Come back out there, whoa, 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 and then touch, and it's reminiscent of horseback riding for me. Okay. And so there's this, and up, and I'm just choosing to lift that foot up. There you go, you see them lifting and leaning. And then I got, oh, I gotta get that crunch effect. Oh my goodness. Oh. And then, oh, back to the bird dog. And then back to the tabletop. So it's that playfulness that you want. It's that challenge. It's that doing that hard thing. I think that we probably did a lot as kids, and we do less as adults, is just playing with something and doing it hard and trying to make it happen. We never want to hurt ourselves, but we're okay with a little bit of awkwardness, and that's the key here. Be okay with the awkwardness of your body, because that's when you're truly breaking your ground. That's when you're truly getting the work done. And you will work really hard in trying to formulate everything together through those awkward phases, and that's good. You probably don't want to do too many of the most intense or awkward things, but you do want to do some of them to get the brain trained. And the next time we come around to this and try it again, you'll find that unconsciously your brain hasn't been working on those actions. Now, a good workout deserves a good warm down, and we can stand if we want and begin the warm down with twist. So you keep working out if you're still in workout, but when you're ready to, you can start a twist. And we can also take a shoulder across and get a nice twist like that, or put the elbows down and reach a shoulder that way. That gives a slightly different stretching twist. But I think probably one of the favorites of many people is to come down. Now I like the initial position on the back because it gives me an opportunity to stretch my shoulders, and I do so with my hands around the knees and moving the leg away from me. And there, oh, it's one of my favorite shoulder stretches. So I just hang on to the leg as it moves away from the chest. That's a good stretch. Another stretch is the hamstring, the back of the leg. So I put my hands in the back leg, but this time I don't let the legs move away. I simply get one a little straighter, and so there's a stretch. And I can stretch that calf just by reaching the heel. So a little bit straighter, and stretching the calf, we'll reach the heel. Stretching both at the same time if you like. That's good too. And arms out to the side, nice and braced. You can rock the legs with the feet lifted. A lot of people love this, but for some, it's a little more intense in their back desire. So you could just rest those toes down and rock from side to side. And that's good. Or if I wanted, I could step the feet out nice and wide and rock and have that nice wide open path for the leg to fold inward, and that gives me a nice stretch right there in the front of the hip as that pelvis comes upward. So this and more are the opportunities to warm down. You may just want to lay flat and just breathe, especially if you got nice heated up, breathe a little harder. And that is yours to decide how long you rest, but it's the follow through that makes our workouts effective. So not just doing something that's intense, but doing the warm down so the body's ready for other things, and letting yourself hydrate either during the class or after class, get some more fluids in there. Eat your 30 grams of protein within the hour of the class if you're wanting to build the most muscle. And then get your sleep, get your 7 to 10 hours of sleep so that you will have the energy that you need to do these workouts, plus so your body will reduce inflammation and build more muscle for you. And then, of course, repeat the efforts at least once a week, but don't do back-to-back intense workouts because that overtrains the body and makes it more risky, more likely to have an issue or injury. Great work, everyone. Thank you for being here.